dealing with a hammy. This team has dealt with their fair share of injuries. KD sitting more games than he's actually played, but let's give Kyrie some props putting on a show last night and carrying the team. Now, Stephen A., many expect this team to represent the East in the finals, but could there be trouble ahead for the Nets? Are you starting to get concerned about all these injuries?
I'm getting concerned because of the injuries, yes. I think that, first of all, major props to James Harden because, you know, when he's injured, he's injured. This is not a dude that loves to miss games. He doesn't miss many games. That's just not what he does. But I think that when you look at the Brooklyn Nets, my only concern about the Brooklyn Nets is primarily themselves. Now, obviously, that comes with the attachment that if you're worried about them imploding, then obviously you have to look at teams like the Milwaukee Bucks and Philadelphia 76ers and an outside chance with the Miami Heat and take it a little bit more seriously. Because I'm still wondering, as I said weeks ago, what the hell is taking, KD and AD so long to get back? Certainly, the playoffs are the priority. What happens in June and July, it's what it's all about. We all understand that. But in the same breath, you just look at this team in terms of chemistry, cohesiveness, and what have you, and you kind of wonder when these guys are going to come back and play some games. 1 minute you hear that he's on his way back and he could be ready to go. Another time you don't see that at all. And then Kyrie Irving, for all his greatness, and make no mistake, it's pure greatness. It's pure greatness and box office, and he put on an absolute show last night. The flip side to it is that when are you going to take, when's the next time he's just going to want to take off? How many personal days is he going to use, et cetera, et cetera? You wonder about this stuff. Meanwhile, teams like Milwaukee are saying, hey, listen, we coming. Well, we don't believe it's a foregone conclusion that Brooklyn is coming out of the East. The Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid coming back. We'll see what's going to happen in that regard. And so I just think that it's worth paying attention to in that regard. Not necessarily the competition itself, but the fact that the Nets seem to have this attitude, we can turn it on and off when we want to. The truly great teams can, for the most part, but you never know when a potential hiccup may occur. It's not about the other teams. It's about them. And I wonder about it sometimes, to be quite honest with you.
I have the exact opposite reaction after last night's game. The Knicks were feeling good about themselves. They had a nice lead at the half. The Nets down two of their two best players because Kyrie is great, and he's not only the best show in basketball, he's elevating to near MVP caliber play now. And yet, if you had to rank them on the Nets, you'd say KD 1, Harden 2, Kyrie 3. So they're missing their best two players, really, after Harden had to leave. And the Knicks are feeling good, and the Nets aren't playing defense. And the Knicks put up 60-something points, it was close to 70 points in the first half. And then just like that, Stephen A., they turned it on. Kyrie turned it on. The Nets turned on the defense better than it was certainly in the first half. And they win. The Knicks, as we know, they're a solid team. They're not world beaters, but they're a solid team. They play with pride. They play defense. Nothing they could do. The Nets won. And by the way, the Nets have the best record in the Eastern Conference, and KD basically hasn't played all year. And Harden just got there. It's not like they had an offseason to all play together. This team is so good, it's scary. Now, certainly, KD's prolonged absence and the fact that he's coming off an Achilles and all that, yes, injury is a concern. What I'm saying is this. If the Nets are healthy, I'm at the point where I don't think anyone else can win the championship this year if they're healthy, and I think that includes the Lakers. If the Nets are healthy, because now I've seen the Nets down, I've seen each star. We know KD can carry a team. I've seen Harden do it by himself, beat some good teams by himself. And now I've seen Kyrie beat a solid team with a big lead at the half when he was the only star on the floor. They can all carry a team. And the three of them together, I keep saying it, let me be very clear. If and when this team ever gets healthy, by the end of this season, meaning playoffs and everything, we will say that was the greatest offensive team in the history of American team sports. They will win the title. It's just an issue of health.
Well, I appreciate you coming to the party because that certainly wasn't your position at the start of the season, but that's neither here nor there. What I will tell you is this. When I look at when you saw him play, you still had that for the first month or two of the season. But here's the deal. You didn't think they would play defense good enough. That was your position. But that's fair enough. Bottom line is this. Right. Here's what you look at when you look at the Brooklyn Nets. Again, they are showstoppers, bona fide showstoppers. These brothers are real and on another level. But when we look at the great teams in the NBA, the reigning defending champion Lakers, and we think about the Milwaukee Bucks and adding Drew Holiday and those boys there, okay? And P.J. Tucker's a big pickup for them because of what he can do on the defensive end of the floor, okay? You look at the Philadelphia 76ers, they're not going away. You look at Denver, I shouldn't say all of these other teams because there's only one that's getting to come out of the West, okay? You don't have to face all of those teams in the West, just one of them. All I'm saying is this attitude that we can just turn it on and off while other teams are building chemistry, I think could potentially be a mistake. Now, where it gets interesting is that the Lakers obviously have the same issue for very legitimate reasons because Anthony Davis is injured and LeBron James is injured. So they're not, but they already had a season together in which they won a championship. So the chemistry and cohesiveness is there. Plus, we have to look at Brooklyn, Max, and we got to ask ourselves, we love what we're seeing. Kyrie Irving is averaging 28 a game, 51% shooting, 39+% from three-point range. He's only averaging 2 turnovers a game. I mean, when you look at it from that perspective, he's been nothing short of sensational, and he deserves props for that, and he's been selfless, not selfish at all, very selfless. James Harden, we say the same thing about him. Kevin Durant, we know that about him. But you also have to find yourself wondering that when all else fails, because of that absence of chemistry from not having played together, but so much, are they going to do that if pressurized moments show up? Those are legitimate questions to ask is all I'm saying.
Fine, but I'm just saying the evidence that I've seen before leads me to the opposite conclusion, like in the opposite direction. Like they have chemistry because, as you said, Kyrie's been totally unselfish and so is Harden. We know KD's an unselfish player. But Harden and Kyrie, can they do it? They're showing the pursuit of greatness is what is most important to them. And you only get that as with your team. You have to have team greatness. And Stephen A., James Harden rolls out of bed, as I said, shows up in Brooklyn looking like a hot mess, fat and out of shape, and gives the league that work. Took them on a West Coast trip, beat the best teams in the Western Conference 5-0 on that trip by himself. And then Kyrie and Harden, the chemistry they already have. All I'm saying is when KD gets back, that chemistry is only going to get better. They turn on the defense as they did last night, seemingly at will. The fact that they already have the best record in the East.
He wasn't fat enough when he arrived in Portland.
Looking like a hot mess.
He looked like a hot mess at the beginning when he went against Portland and dropped 44.
Right.
That was when he was with.
That's what I'm saying. He walked out of bed. He walked out of bed a hot mess and gave the league business. I mean, like, by the time the playoffs get here and these three dudes have played together a little bit, it's a wrap. And last night to me was just more evidence.
Well, Vegas gives them the best odds to win it all. That, according to Caesars, they have the Nets winning the title. Oh, okay, Stephen A. We shall see. You're going to like that little East Coast, West Coast trip, something you're familiar with, sir.
Yes.
Let's keep it going. I hear you have a problem with this, Mr. Stephen A.